Okay, so welcome back to the Raw Isaiah One YouTube channel. It's been about 4 years since I've been on YouTube, and because life just gets in the way. But it's not like I've been doing nothing this whole time. I've been coaching, but now that I have more of a break, I am back on YouTube and hopefully with more guest appearances. And today I have our first guest back on my YouTube is a former Manchester United graduate of Phil Marsh. And Phil Marsh, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be on. Nice to have a catch up. Obviously, we've spoke a little bit over messages over the last couple of years since first making contact. So yeah, it'd be good to finally have a good chat and catch up on all things that you want to speak to me about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you're coaching as well. I know some people were asking on X, what were you doing now? And it's not. I always say to myself when people ask me about other people's life, it's not really not my story to tell. So if you want to go ahead and elaborate on what you're doing now, and you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, of course. I retired from sort of playing about 18 months, 2 years ago. Obviously, since dropping into semi-professional football where you're only sort of playing and training part-time, that was when I sort of started the coaching and took that a little bit more seriously. I did the badges, I started the badges, obviously I was at Man United, and continued to do that through the years of playing. So yeah, now that I've retired, obviously now I've got more time, I've sort of been doing that a little bit more seriously. So um, I work at a school as well, so um, idea is that obviously when the kids are off, I'll be off. So majority of the time, I sort of do a lot of my coaching and my main work really in the school holidays when the kids are off school. I work with all different types of ages, but my main core group of age groups that I work with are sort of kids between the ages of 8 and 16. So yeah, obviously enjoyed it, and I set up my own business a couple of years ago, just doing football coaching, one-to-one, small group sessions. I go in and do team sessions, and yeah, it's been really good. As I say, the next best thing, obviously after playing, is still being involved coaching. And in the future, obviously, I'm sort of going to try and hopefully get into maybe management when the time's right. Obviously, at this moment in time, I'm still enjoying my coaching. Obviously, only just retired. I've got two young girls who are at an age where they're enjoying stuff. They're into like gymnastics and dance and swimming. So spending a bit of time with them and watching them grow and enjoy their sort of sports is obviously a nice thing for me. Obviously, being a footballer, you sacrifice and you're travelling a lot of the time, and you don't get to see these things a lot of the time. So having a couple of years off and just sort of being able to enjoy them moments with your kids as well is also something that I've really valued.
Yeah, I appreciate that update, and I'm glad you're doing so well. And I appreciate, I love that you're still involved in the football community with in whatever way you can be. I tried to be over here. It's a little hard over here because football obviously isn't the, I would say, main sport. It's the American football that is the main sport, especially in these schools, and it's difficult to get the kids to be more serious about what we call soccer. But obviously, I still call it to a lot of people football, European football, whatever you want to call it. And which brings me to my next point, or my next question, I guess you can say, is you obviously were from the Manchester United Academy. You got called up, and I forgot what year was it? 05, 06, around there?
Do you mean for the first team debut?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was '05. Yeah, because I left in '06. It was the year before I left, so yeah, '05. I think I got my first team debut.
Okay. So I would like for you to take us on that route on what the feeling was training when you were first called up. How did that come about? Did they say, "Hey, Phil, you're up," or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was sort of a gradual thing. I'd been doing really well, obviously post the car accident. So I'd sort of had a bad injury where I'd been involved in a car crash and I was out for just over a year. So I'd done a lot of rehabilitation and a lot of work with the physios and countless hours in the gym to sort of get myself back to a level where I felt like I was previously, because I was doing really well, and sort of that incident came at a pretty bad time for me. Um, but yeah, obviously, yeah, in that period coming up to when I got my first team call up, I'd been playing really well, been scoring regular in the reserves, was sort of feeling back to my old self and sort of in a really good place mentally and physically. So you have a little bit of an idea when the cup games come around that as a reserve team slash fringe player that you might be getting an opportunity maybe to feature in some of these games. Yeah, luckily for me, I got the nod and was given the call up to sort of be involved in that squad for that particular game, along with probably about 5 or 6 other the youth players who were around that age. So yeah, obviously really exciting moment when you know that you're going to be involved. Obviously at that moment I didn't know I was going to be starting the game, but just to be involved and to sort of be in and around the first team, obviously playing with some of the players that was at the club at that time as well. Your Wayne Rooney's, Cristiano Ronaldo's, Roy Keane, etc. was brilliant, and obviously having that 3 or 4 days where you're training with the first team on a regular basis and being in and around it with them kind of players is priceless. So yeah, really great memories and obviously a great you know moment for me in my career to sort of get that recognition and obviously be given the opportunity to walk out and play for Manchester United.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, did you have any butterflies leading up to the game, or once you got to the training sessions and from your first training
Yeah,
session?
definitely. Yeah, I think obviously natural reaction. Obviously,
Hmm.
it's strange. It obviously being in the training ground every day, sort of mixing it with all these top professionals, eating dinner and breakfast and speaking to them all. I think you sort of you're in a bit of a bubble, and obviously only when you leave the club you sort of understand and realise the magnitude of how fortunate and probably lucky you was to be in that environment. But yeah, obviously when I got the call up, it was brilliant, and as a young player, you sort of really excited. But for me, especially because obviously of what had happened previous with, what I'd been through, and obviously all the hard work that I'd sort of put in to get myself back, it was sort of a bit of a weight lifted off my shoulders. If I'm honest, I did feel as though prior to the car crash and sort of the long term injury that I had, I was sort of making really good progress. I did feel as though I was destined to sort of make it through the ranks and get an opportunity in the first team. And then obviously when that happened, obviously everything was put on hold. So yeah, the hard work and all the sort of extra that I put in obviously paid off, and eventually got me to the place where I got a call up and managed to play in the first team. So yeah, amazing time, amazing memories. Obviously going home, telling your parents and speaking to your friends and letting them know that you're going to be involved in a first team game for Manchester United was amazing. So yeah, really good times and a great memory to have.
Yeah, and I know we spoke a couple years ago about your car accident, and what a little bit of the background, when Sir Alex Ferguson offered you, I think, a contract extension. And correct me if I'm wrong. And with all that being done, I'm talking about it like not just him as a manager, but as a person. And by the grace of God, you survived by what was horrific car accident, and you got to make your first team debut. So if you could take us, just rewind just a little bit with what had, I would say, if you don't mind me asking, what had happened before and then I guess after the car incident.
Yeah, well, the incident actually happened. I was 17 at the time, just nearly turning 18, and I'd played in the Youth Cup at Old Trafford for the first time against Manchester City the night before it happened. Obviously, I was a year younger, so I was playing up an age group already. And I'd obviously played in the game against Manchester City, which we won 2-1. And the following day, we just came in and reported for a cool down, as we would do ordinarily after a game. You'd come in and do a bit of a cool down. Um, so at this point, just to give you a little bit of background on what had happened at the club, another player, Jimmy Davis, who was another young player, had not long since died in a car accident. Driving back from a game, he'd been on loan at Watford, and he crashed on his way back from a game on the motorway, and tragically he was killed. So Sir Alex Ferguson had put sort of a ban in place, or not a ban, but like a bit of a warning that younger players was not allowed to drive certain cars, was not allowed to travel independently into the ground unless you was over the age of 18, and obviously proving yourself that you was trustworthy of doing so. So I used to get a minibus into the training ground with quite a lot of the younger lads. But on this occasion, what had happened, we'd had a good win on the night before at Old Trafford. We'd came in, we'd done a cool down, and where I used to stay in Diggs was basically 5 minutes around the corner from the training ground in Sale. And I stayed with two or three of the other lads. Two of the lads were older. One was an 18-year-old, and the other was a 19-year-old, and there was myself and Richie Jones, who was 17 years of age at the time. Um, and what had happened, we'd done the cool down and had some dinner, and then a few of the lads who hadn't caught up on some of the college work, we used to do 2 days a week at college, and sort of that was where we did our UEFA qualifications and some BTEC sports science, just to give us something really to fall back on if football didn't really pan out. Um, I was up to date with all my work, as well as probably two or three of the other lads. And we was basically just told that because the minibus was going to have to wait for the bulk of the players, um, on this occasion they allowed us to go on with some of the older lads, because as I say, it was only 5 minutes round the corner, um, just so we could go home and not have to wait around for a few hours when obviously we was up to date. Um, so yeah, that was how the sort of situation arose. And then on the way home from the training ground, it was one of the young lads and one of the sort of pros had sort of come out of the training ground, and obviously, being young and a little bit naive, having flash cars with a lot of power behind them, they was sort of just messing around, speeding up, slowing down, and as you leave the training ground and turn right, you used to go past Manchester City's old training ground, which isn't there anymore. But the roads are quite bendy and really sort of snaky. So as we was on our way back, one of the lads who I was in the car with tried to go pretty fast round this corner, and that was obviously the last thing I remember, because the back of the car spun and all I remember seeing was another car coming towards me, and I just remember shutting my eyes, and I just felt the impact of the car, and that was it. I literally woke up about an hour and a half later getting cut out of the car, and then obviously was airlifted to Wythenshawe Hospital, not knowing what had happened, and obviously how serious the injuries that I had was. So yeah, that was obviously the background of how the incident happened, and sort of what happened. And then obviously after that it was about a 12-month layoff for me. I was sort of in hospital for just over a week, and then I was sent home in a cast, and I was in a wheelchair. I had to sleep sort of downstairs in my mum and dad's house for about 3 or 4 months, because I was struggling to get upstairs and go to the toilet. So yeah, it was a difficult period, as I say. The manager was amazing with me. He came and visited me straight away at home when I got out of hospital, and basically reassured me that I'd get the best treatment, and that because of what had happened, I would automatically get a year extension added to my contract, as it wasn't my fault. And yeah, they just sort of did everything they could really to make me feel at ease, and to give me the best chance of getting back to a level of progression that I was at.
Mhm.
But obviously it was a difficult time, because the severity of the car crash and the amount of injuries that I suffered simultaneously was a real challenge sort of to come back from. And not only that, obviously mentally as well, being such a young kid and having the world at your feet, if you like, and then obviously having it basically snatched away from you, what I thought at the time was sort of a really difficult moment for me. So yeah, obviously really lucky on one sense to still obviously be alive, but then when reality hits and you think obviously what your dream is of becoming a professional footballer and trying to make it at the top level, it was obviously a difficult period to come through, but thankfully I did that.
No, yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that story with us because a lot of people fear that stuff like that happens, but as that happened by the grace of God, as I said earlier, that you survived it, and now you get to tell your story as you're doing right now to not just me, but to other people who are listening, whether they are from the United States or the UK or anywhere around the world. Is that I don't know what other people's who are listening beliefs are, but we do serve a big God, and I think this for me, this is just that is the case for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think obviously I do believe in God, and I do believe everyone has a time to go, and when it's your time, it's your time. And thankfully for me, on that day, it wasn't. And as I say, I had to work extremely hard. I had to do a lot of things that I probably didn't want to do, but in order for me to get back to the level and to put myself in the best position that I could to try and achieve my goal of playing in the first team at Manchester United and becoming a professional footballer. That was what I had to do, and as well, I had good people around me. The club was amazing. I had a good, strong family. People supporting me, being there when I needed them to. So yeah, I think the whole process was something that on reflection was very hard and difficult in the moment, but when you come out the other side of it, and as I say, when you get that first team call up and sort of all that hard work and determination, seems like it was worthwhile. And yeah, as I say, it was a really proud moment for me, not only to come out and play for Manchester United, but to obviously you know see that everything that I'd been through and everything that I'd done had sort of an end goal, which was really good.
Yeah, and it's just being, I guess, grateful for life because not just physically but mentally you have to come overcome all those obstacles. You didn't know whether you were gonna play for Manchester United again or let alone play again. But here you are. I know you said I believe you said you're retired now. You're coaching. You have what was it, two little girls.
Yeah,
You got a family. You're doing all this good stuff, and that just shows that just that is life is just more than football. It can be taken away from you, and unfortunately, we lost Diego Jota to
yeah,
an accident that is just unfortunate. And then no matter how rich or big of a player you are or athlete you are, whether you're the president of the United States, whatever, all that stuff can be taken away from you. So I for one am grateful that you're here and that you have the time to do this show with me.
yeah. No, I appreciate it, and as you say, yeah, I think it's a good message, really, that as you say, no matter what walk of life you come from, or who you are, or as you say, how much money you've got, whatever, there's certain things that happen in life, and it makes you realise that life is so precious. You're not here for long. You want to enjoy yourself. You want to live life to the full, but also you've got to put things into perspective at times. And for me, football was everything. But as you say, now obviously retiring not too long ago, having a family, kids, and being able to still give back and still enjoy um, football in a different way is really amazing for me. And yeah, as I say, I do want to stay involved in the game, and hopefully moving forward go into maybe some management, or an assistant manager role maybe in the not so distant future. But for now, I'm sort of just enjoying my coaching, working with the kids at the school that I work with, because the kids that I work with are very challenging, autistic, ASD. A lot of them have had a really tough upbringing, don't have any male role models. So being able to work with kids like that as well, and sort of be somebody who they can trust and confide in and sort of look up to is really refreshing, and something that I really enjoy doing.
No, it's inspiring because not a lot of, like you said, a lot of kids have that, especially here. I try to be to a certain extent talking all this. I I guess I'll ask. Once you were in the first team with Manchester United, I'm gonna say who was the funniest out of the bunch with the first team?
Um, I think, to be honest, there was a lot of real characters. A lot of the foreign players loved to play jokes and had little sort of ongoing jokes that they had. I mean, to be honest, I couldn't a lot of the time understand what some of them were saying. You know, like your Patrice Evras and Ronaldo's and people at because they all spoke sort of in their own little groups and languages. But yeah, a lot of the players were really funny and witty. Ryan Giggs actually was a bit of a joker. He used to be quite funny. Rio Ferdinand was quite funny. He used to when we used to do the Christmas, so we used to have a big meal at Christmas times, and some of the younger lads would end up having to do a bit of a performance where we had to dress up and sort of take on some of the first team players. So when I was in my first year as a YTS player, we had to dress up as all the young lads had to dress up as the first team players and obviously play a part in a bit of a performance in the canteen for them, which was hilarious. But I mean, nowadays it would never be allowed to
You're
happen.
right.
Obviously it just wouldn't. But yeah, some of the stuff that was sort of done in them times was brilliant, and I think it was just part and parcel of you know your character building and sort of introducing yourself into the group. And obviously it was brilliant fun. We used to have some really good laughs. I think now obviously we've seen in the sort of more recent times that a lot of the younger players' duties that we used to have. So I used to clean boots and pump balls up and make drinks and wash. One of the first I used to wash Paul Scholes' boots, and he used to give me a little bit of a bonus at Christmas and stuff like that. All that kind of thing has been took away now. I think because of obviously the way the game's gone, social media and sort of people's rights and all that kind of stuff has sort of been highlighted. I don't think any of that happens, but a lot of that stuff was really good and helped you stay grounded. I think a lot of players now get probably too much too soon. Big contracts, a lot of money,
Yeah,
distractions, other things outside of football, and I think that sort of takes your eye sort of away from what the main aim is really as a footballer. We was always really grounded. We was always really disciplined and knew exactly what the expectations were of being a player for Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson, which was for me I absolutely loved it. I think nowadays the culture at the club has certainly changed, and obviously we've seen over the last decade how many managers and different types of players and performances we've had, and I think that's a lot down to the culture that we used to have, and sort of has sort of been falling away gradually over time.
yeah. Back in the day on the South first, and it was a whole different culture, like you said, and now it's honestly, it would I would expect it to be slightly different a culture, at least at Manchester United speaking, because all the social media, cell phones, and stuff like that coming out. I think it was always going to shift cultures. But a lot of these players that we brought in over the years, I don't know if I should say names, but I'm or not, but I'm sure you may know some or that I'm people watching may know that on very big contracts refuse to play for the club, want to go play for a rival team, want to are willing to sit out their contracts for in potentially miss the World Cup that's coming up next year. To me, it just doesn't make sense, and I think it's quite obvious who a couple players that I'm talking about, but it's true because other people see it, I see it, you see it. I'm sure former players and managers see it. So would any of this slide on the Sir Alex Ferguson, or would they even have I guess the balls to challenge Sir Alex Ferguson?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the sort of stuff that happens nowadays is purely based on the player power now. I think the players have far too much power. I think when I was at the club under Sir Alex Ferguson, there probably was a lot of incidents that happened. and things that would, maybe get said, or people who may do things, but it would all get dealt with in house. It would all get dealt with, and it wouldn't get leaked to the media. It wouldn't be all over social media. You wouldn't have players sort of, doing things that was, you know, bringing unnecessary attention to the club. I think we was probably lucky a little bit in terms of the era I played in. There wasn't any real social media. I think nowadays, everything and everything's caught on camera. Everything's on, videos. There's, you know, about 15 different platforms that people can upload things onto. So whatever's happening doesn't, get missed. But yeah, certainly under Sir Alex Ferguson, and when I was there, if anything did get, out of hand, it would always get dealt with in house, and people would make sure that people knew what the expectations were, and if you wasn't going to stand in line and sort of, sing off the same hymn sheet as everybody else, then you would inevitably be, you know, gotten rid of. You would be, surplus to requirements, and Sir Alex wouldn't, mind if that was the captain or the cleaner. No matter what, if you wasn't, doing what the expectations of the club was, and wasn't sort of, buying into what everybody else was, then no matter who you are, nobody is bigger than the club, and you would be moved on. And I think everybody knew that, and because of the way that was, that made everybody understand and sort of know what people had to do and how to go about the business. And for that reason, that's I think why the club was so successful, because not only did we have amazing players, I think it was a family, and everybody was, striving for the same things. Everybody was pushing in the same direction. There was no, you know, sort of big time Charlies. There was no people who was better than anybody else. Everybody was accountable, and everybody was, um, on the same playing field, if you like.
No, yeah, you almost made me tear up there because when you say they play as a team, as a family, we for the past few years, we haven't been able to see that as Manchester United, not just as former players of the club or as fans of the club, but you want to see this team succeed because you and I both have a deep connection for different reasons to the club, and it's been hard, especially last season where we finished 15th. And do you think that's why is it because of the culture change? It's not just tactics. I think tactics, yeah, are some of the reasons, but people just need to realize it's not just tactics, it's not just the coaching, but it's what's going on in the locker room. For years, players were getting handed overpaid contracts, renewals that were beyond their abilities, and I mean that in the most respectful way, and it's an honest way that I can put it. You think that's the reason that that the club has been on the decline ever since?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. I think obviously post Sir Alex Ferguson, the team and the performances, and I mean, results speak for itself. You look at how many managers we've had. You look at the type of players that we've tried to recruit and bring in. Um, the amount of money that we've had to pay for some of these players as well. People who are making big, massive decisions that are inevitably not working out on a consistent basis, which is you know sort of held the club back by 5, 10, 15 years. You know what I mean? It's like people
Hmm.
getting paid to do a job, and not doing it to nowhere near the level that is required. So yeah, as I say, I think that was what was so good when I was at the club. In every position, you had the best in class, down from the manager to the groundsman. Every single person who was at the club loved working there, came in every day with the same, refreshing mentality of, we want to work and give everything. Um, and I just think, obviously, since a lot of them people have sort of moved on, I think the culture has just gradually got worse, and that's then given license to the players to be able to get away with more and more as time's gone on. And I think we're at a point now where the players have literally got majority of the power, because they're getting 5 year contracts on stupid wages. It's really difficult for a manager to sort of, you know, do anything really. I think Amarin, you look at the players obviously in the more recent times, your Sancho's and Garnacho's, etc. I think Amarin's obviously done the right thing by sort of ostracising them from the group. There's not really much else he can do other than, set a precedent for the rest of the club and the rest of the players. And I think obviously he did it with Rashford, and obviously he's moved on now as well. So because of the way some of these players are behaving, it's having a massive knock-on effect with, a lot of the younger players as well, because they're looking and seeing the role models and looking up and seeing that, if that's if that's deemed as acceptable, then, why can't I do it? And it's a shame because, you want players to, understand what it means to play for Manchester United and the history of the club and what it means, and then you get certain players who take that opportunity for granted and basically disregard a lot of the stuff that has sort of gotten to where they are, which is disappointing. But again, we've talked about how the generational thing has changed, and the modern day footballer for me is a lot different to when I was coming through the ranks, purely based on, for me, it's the money, the contracts, and the social media, and probably the agents as well. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing for a manager to be able to manage players when, obviously, as I say, they're on huge deals, and the sort of hands are tied really with what they can do.
No, yeah, I agree. It's pretty much everything that that's wrong with, or at least that was wrong for the last decade for Manchester United is just pure greed. Whether it's from the owners themselves or the players themselves. But it kind of reminds me because a lot of people like to I guess mention high paying footballers in Cristiano Ronaldo, and I know you told me a story one time where Ronaldo. I don't know if it was you playing. I was it ping pong
Yeah,
with Ronaldo or somebody. Yeah, and I think you beat him, and he didn't want to talk to you for a couple of weeks, and
yeah,
then once I guess he was practicing ping pong, and he got good at it per se,
yeah,
and he wanted to play you, and then he beat you. That's the type of mentality that we
yeah.
need at Manchester United.
Yeah, 100%. And you see, obviously, I was just mentioning about someone like Garnacho. Like, obviously, we know that Garnacho's sort of role model and idol that he looks up to is Cristiano Ronaldo. So to see him sort of behaving the way he is at the moment is quite disappointing, because there's a difference between sort of arrogance and ignorance. I think obviously Cristiano has been one of the best footballers in the world for the last decade. He's achieved unbelievable heights in the game. He's done everything there is to do, and he's still playing at the top level. Albeit in Saudi Arabia, he's still representing his country,
Hmm.
scoring goals, and he's 40 years of age. He looks in brilliant condition, and I think that is purely based down to his drive, his attitude, his desire to keep going, and to sort of maintain the levels and the standards that he's always had. And I think, for someone like, Ganacho, for example, who looks um, up to somebody like him, I think obviously the way he's sort of acted in the last couple of months um, is obviously disappointing, because you think obviously what opportunity he's got. He's obviously got a lot of potential. He's a very good player, and he's probably still got a lot of stuff he can improve on. But I don't think this look and this image that he's you know putting out there at this moment in time will benefit him, short term or long term. I think regardless of whether he stays or goes to another club, you know, people from the outside looking in at players' body language, players' attitudes, players, um, you know, the way they portray themselves on and off the pitch, I think is massive. Um, and yeah, it's something that I think somebody like Cristiano has done for, you know, the last 15, 20 years, and somebody who a lot of young players will look up to and respect because you can think what you want of him as a player, but in terms of what he's done to get to where he was to what he's done, I think hard work is a massive um, you know part of what has made Cristiano so good, and to sort of keep driving and striving to be better every single year is something that sort of we can all look at and sort of learn from.
Yeah, and did you always see that in Ronaldo when spending time with him at Manchester United? Did you think, man, this guy has a mentality that most people don't have, most athletes don't have? What was going through your mind when you saw Ronaldo in action or outside of it, training, working hard, and all that? What was your
Yeah,
what were
I
your
think I
thoughts?
think I think he first and foremost he just loved the game. I think he just loved being competitive. He loved being the best at everything. As I say, whether it was at football or table tennis, whatever it may be, he always wanted to be the best. And the first thing that sort of I picked up and sort of struck me was that every time I would come into the training ground, Cristiano would always be there, and I used to get in pretty early myself, but he was always there, and he would always be the last one to leave. So getting in through the door first and then leaving last just shows that he wants to put extra effort in. He was always in the gym after training. He would always have a bag of balls and practicing. He would do extra work with Rennie Meulenstein on the sort of technical side and all the sort of tricks and flicks that he used to do. So he was just perfecting his craft and just trying to, improve daily. And obviously, as time went on, he became more ruthless and started to think more about goals rather than sort of the showboating side of things. And he just became a phenomenal player. I think,
Mhm.
the last season he had before he went to Real Madrid was, one of the best Premier League seasons that I can, recall. I think obviously we've had some great players over the years like Thierry Henry and people like that, but I think Ronaldo in that prime season for Manchester United was just different levels, and yeah, I think obviously that fell hand in hand with what I was seeing at the training ground every single day. The work he was putting in, the attitude, the dedication, the gym work, asking people for advice, working with the specialist coaches on different aspects of his game. And obviously he was looking after himself away from the training ground as well. He was doing the utmost to make sure he was in tip-top condition every single time he stepped onto the pitch.
Oh yeah, and did he ever Did he ever invite you to say, hey, let's do this or let's do that, like to in the training
Yeah,
ground? Or,
yeah, definitely. I think it was funny because obviously when he signed, he was pretty much the same age as me. He was a year older than me, so obviously coming to the club at such a young age, he sort of went straight into the first team. But because he didn't really speak much English at that point, and sort of a lot of the first team players were a lot older at that point. He sort of gravitated to a lot of the younger lads because at the end of the day, he was still just a kid at that point. So
Mhm.
yeah, we used to play a lot of games together after training. Two touch in sort of football terms where you'd keep the ball up, and basketball, table tennis, we'd go and do stuff in the gym. Um, yeah, I mean, he was great, to be honest. I think even though he didn't speak a lot of English at that point, we sort of had a good connection, and obviously he was competitive, and he used to enjoy sort of being around some of us and the younger players just to sort of keep himself um, grounded as well. I think because, as I say, everything sort of happened for him quickly, and once he sort of got into the first team and probably got that first 6 months out of the way where he was maybe doing a little bit too much, and Roy Keane was probably giving him a few rollickins. He learned that that was the right way to play, and when he had a bit of time to do some stuff, he could do it. But then also, he could also learn how to play the Manchester United way, which was pass and move, and go and get the ball back and put balls in the box, and eventually, he picked up on all them things and became a revelation really at the club.
Yeah, and then the rest is history with Cristiano Ronaldo. And I appreciate the update and the story that you mentioned. For the people that are watching, and before we wrap things up, while you were with the academy team, I would like for you to take us through the process of how do you sign with the academy team, what age, what goes on, at least at that time through the academy team. So, because some people on X try and DM me and ask me to give them a trial. Like I don't have anything to do with Manchester United or a trial. I wish I did, but I don't know. I don't know the first thing about it um, in that situation. So, maybe you can help others out trying to get a trial.
Yeah, I mean, the situation for me when I joined the club, I signed at the age of 11. So at the time, I was playing for Wigan Athletic, which was um, only a centre of excellence, so it wasn't an academy. So that meant I was only part time, whereas um, when you sign a proper academy, you sort of classed as more full time. So you're training probably 2, 3 times a week and then playing on a weekend. So I was at Wigan for 2 years. So I was there from 9 to 10, and then what happened was I'd been scouted by one of the Man United scouts in a final where I'd scored 2 goals. And he basically just said, we've been watching him for a while and we want him to come on a trial. So the difficulty for me at that point was I'd just been offered a new contract. I already had a contract at Wigan, and then I'd been offered a new contract to take me to sort of 13. I think I'd been offered a 2 or 3 year contract. Um, so I'd had an offer on a contract, and I was already under contract, but it was only a centre of excellence. So the Man United opportunity came, and I was in a situation where if I wanted to pursue the Man United trial, that would mean that potentially my bridges would be burned with Wigan, because if I walked away and went on the trial um, and it was unsuccessful, Wigan was sort of umming and ahhing then to say, well, oh, if you're going to go to Man United, then you might not be able to come back and we might not offer you this new contract. So it was a bit of a difficult situation, but obviously, when Man United come calling, I couldn't turn the opportunity down to go and give it a try. So yeah, I ended up going on. Initially, they asked me to go for a 2 week trial, and I only ended up doing 2 training sessions, and they said, like, yeah, we've seen enough, and we want to offer you a 2 year contract straight away. So for me, it was obviously a amazing um, feeling to know that I've only gone to the club twice, trained, and the club are really keen on me to sign. So yeah, I ended up signing for Manchester United when I was 11, and I signed a 2 year contract, which took me to sort of 13, which was like under 14s. I then signed another 2 year contract at the age of 13 that took me to 15/16. So that's obviously then when you um, get to age 15, 16, that's sort of like when it's make or break time, because that's when you're in your last year of school, like year 11. And then when you finish school, that's when you either get offered a full time contract to go in and be a professional, or like a youth apprentice, or you get released and then you're obviously looking for another club. So I was lucky enough to be one of 3 that got offered a full time contract. So at the age of 16, we had a squad of probably about 20 players, and only 3 of us got kept on. The rest was released. So myself, Danny Simpson, and um, Richie Jones all got contracts. But because obviously there was only 3 of us, what actually happened was myself and Richie ended up going up into the under 18s straight away from school. So we missed out the under 17s because we didn't have a team, because everyone had been released. So we went straight up into the higher age group. And Danny Simpson, because he hadn't quite sort of developed physically, he stayed in the under 16s. and trained with sort of the academy lads for that next sort of 6 to 12 months until he'd filled out. Um, but yeah, just to touch on your other point in terms of the academy and what happens. Um, so when I joined at the age of 11, I was training probably 2 or 3 times a week during the week. Really good training, like really good sort of attention to detail, repetition. I think the enjoyment factor probably just started to ease out when I joined. I think obviously in the younger age groups it's more of enjoyment and make sure you sort of developing sort of secondary to the enjoyment factor. I joined and it was more about right we want to try and polish a lot of your basic fundamental skills. So mastering the ball, being able to have a good touch, passing, dribbling, possession-based drills, small-sided games, all that kind of thing. Which was again repetition. Doing it seemed like we were doing the same thing every other week, but really when you sort of rewind and look back, it was purely because you wanted to fine tune them skills and make sure that when you do get a little bit older, all these things that are the basics just come sort of like you know natural. But the great thing about the academy as well is, which I really enjoyed, going on tournaments to different countries, playing against different cultures, different sides, being able to go and experience playing in front of big crowds, um, different styles of football, being able to play against different languages and different types of players that you was probably used to in England. So all these are part of you know getting you ready for when you go into the sort of full time stuff and sort of giving you that taste of what it's like to be a footballer. Going abroad, traveling, playing against different teams, the expectations of what it is to represent the club. Not only when you're on the pitch, but obviously away from the pitch as well. Um, so yeah, the academy experience was amazing. Being able to travel to loads of different countries and play in different tournaments and do really well actually was brilliant. So yeah, really really great upbringing with some great coaches, some fantastic memories, and as I say, being part of Manchester United at the time when I was there was amazing because, as I say, everybody was singing off the same hymn sheet. The culture of the club was, um, you know, second to none. Everybody was, you know, driven and wanted to achieve and be the best, which we was in every age group really. From the kids to the first team, we was so successful across the board, and that's no surprise because it was drummed into every single one of us. And we was playing the same sort of formation as what the first team was playing. Everybody was buying into what was going on, and everybody was made to feel part of the family. So yeah, it was amazing.
No, and I hope and pray that that culture does come back. And I appreciate the insight of what the Manchester United Academy at least was back then. And I'm sure there's maybe still some similarities to it now, which brings me to my last point is the updated Carrington. Have you gone and seen it yet? And it looks quite nice with the video that they used.
Yeah. I haven't actually been since it's been revamped. I did go sort of a couple of months before it went under construction. I took some of the kids from my school and did a bit of a tour around Carrington, thanks to one of my old coaches. So yeah, obviously prior to the revamp had been, but yeah, no, the new facilities look absolutely amazing, state of the art stuff. Um, as I say, the modern day footballer now with all the technology and the sports science and the analysts and as I say the training facilities are I don't know how you can not be in tip top shape and sort of give yourself the best chance. So yeah, it's been um, an incredible revamp to the training ground, which was probably needed a little bit. So yeah, hopefully now that will be the start of sort of the resurgence of Manchester United. Obviously, we want to see an improvement in the league position this year, which I don't think will be hard after last year. But success and winning trophies is always been what Manchester United's been about. So I'm hoping that in the next couple of years now we can start bridging that gap and just making inroads to become better on and off the pitch. I think it's been a massive disappointment overall in the last sort of decade in terms of where Manchester United have been and obviously where they want to be. So I'm hoping that this is the start now of sort of a real rebuild and sort of a promising moment where we can sort of look back on in years to come as this was maybe the start of the tide turning.
Yeah, hopefully on the Almiron, this is the last rebuild for a very long time. I think he's heading into the right direction. I think they're bringing in the right players. Now, it's obviously it takes more than one transfer window. Hopefully, other fans see that. And at the end of the day, it's Manchester United, and it deserves success and deserves to be at the highest pinnacle of football as it once was. And Phil, I appreciate you coming on as we wrap things up. Your stories from when you got called up to the main team through the how you signed through your accident to your first team debut. I appreciate it all.